All right, well, thank you so much for having me here today. So this is my vision. This is the GDELT project. The idea of the GDELT project is how do we take the world's information and try to catalog what's happening around the world, moment by moment, and how people are reacting to that, to the events, the emotions, the reactions, both the textual and the visual narratives that surround that. How do we preserve that as well? So like any good project, it begins with data. And it has many different data sets that feed into it. So news material, this is print, broadcast, and web, over 100 languages supported, covering every country of the world. 65 of those are live machine translated in real time as they arrive. A collaboration with the Internet Archive, as Mark helpfully put in there, to preserve as much of that online material, and we're constantly ramping up the volume of material that they're preserving for us. And the goal of that is to really say, especially with online material, again, so much of this material is ephemeral, especially when you move outside the US, as we know, obviously in Turkey, most recently. Television, so again, we have television partnerships throughout the world, but again, also within the United States. Collaboration again with the Internet Archive to process about 100 stations here. Academic literature, so this was a collaboration, JSTOR, DTIP, Core, sites here again, Internet Archive. Processing 21 billion words, covering 70 years to really provide the context to why things happen around the world. Books, if you want to go backwards in history, human rights material, and imagery, which I'll come to in a second. So again, obviously, as we all know, most of the world does not, English is not their primary language. So this is a map of where GDELT has pulled information from the first 6 months of last year, color-coded by the primary language. Gray is English. So obviously, a lot of the work that has been done historically in preserving online media has focused on English. And as you can see from the gray spots there, if that's all you're preserving, you're missing most of the world here. Now, of course, broadcast and print are very crucial because many of the areas of the world, print and broadcast are the only source, especially broadcast are your only sources into those areas. But again, this really shows you, how important it is to reach beyond, and especially to do things like translation or process things in languages other than English. In terms of preserving online news, about 140,000 articles that we monitor each day disappear within about 2 months. And this is a very important thing for us because this tends not to be, it's not evenly distributed across the world. For example, in Nigeria, under good luck, articles that were criticized the government's response to Boko Haram tend to have a very, very short shelf life indeed. Obviously Turkey, many countries around the world, but also even here within the United States. A news outlet goes bankrupt, a small local outlet goes up. Also, again, news outlets, unfortunately, are more and more pulling material. Also, as we've seen, many major publishers now treat content as very fluid. They have no fear of editing material in real time. And also, I want to point out Nepal here. So a lot of efforts that have been done to date have really focused on things like manual archiving, saying, hey, a major disaster just took place, let's start preserving now. You missed that. So in Nepal, for example, we grabbed about 667,000 articles over the year following that earthquake, really capturing especially the local perspective on things. We can do a lot with that material, so we can do everything from mapping human rights violations to looking at refugee flows, man pads, and all kinds of other things. Also using the Google Cloud Vision API, we're cataloging a large fraction of all that imagery worldwide each day, about 150 million images to date from almost every country in the world. We're extracting out locations, activities, objects, facial emotions, OCR in 80 languages, and also things like violence and so on. So the ability to look not just at the textual narrative, but really for the first time be able to peer into that visual narrative. And finally, I want to leave you with this map. Once you have all this data, what can we do with the world's news? How do we think about it in new ways? This is a very simple map to look at global happiness through the eyes of the media. 200 million articles in 65 languages, 750 billion emotional assessments, including things like anxiety, fear of the future, optimism, and so on. 1.5 billion mentions of location, and 150 million images, and being able to come up with a map of what does that show us, at least through the eyes of the world's news media. What are we seeing? And again, being able to make maps like this and say, well, why do we see more red here? What does that tell us whether this is legitimate for society, or whether media in that particular area focuses and portrays things in a particular light? Thank you very much, and come to my talk this afternoon to hear more on this.